Doug Steffen, who is the president of CGS Immersive. Apologies, but please take it away so I can figure this out.
Well, just 1 second. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Good. Welcome, everybody. My name is Doug Steffen. I'm president of CGS Immersive. And today we've got a pretty good, I'd call it a case study that we're going to work through. And it's really, really the synergies that can be gained from learning professionals like yourselves working with tools and generative AI, how you can get, tenfold the actual productivity by, having a symbiotic relationship with things like ChatGPT or Grok or Anthropic or Claude. And so what we're going to do today is I'm actually going to show what type of course we would have to create for a sales manager, and we're going to make it a personalized, and we're going to show you just how easy it is to get the framework built. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm asking 2 questions, and one of the things that's really deeply interesting to me is, are you using deep research in your LLM workflows? And the reason I'm asking for that is because some of the information that I used in this case, the deep research capability that's found on GPT-4. And for those that haven't used it or are using it within sort of the other LLMs, definitely look at it as it gives you full attributions of the content that you're using. It's just a fantastic tool. So that's one reason. So let's just see what kind of results we get from this poll. I'm quite interested to see because a lot of people, that's what I figured, a lot of people are not aware of it. I'm sure everyone's using, ChatGPT or Grok or Anthropic or Claude in some way, but there is a capability, and I believe if it's not visible, then your administrator can turn it on for you. But it's a very incredible, powerful tool. And I'll show you some of the results, how it looks when we go through that. So 76% no, 25%, 24% said yes. So I'll be sure to answer any questions on that. My second poll, which is very important to me, is how important is role play in your organization? And the reason why I say that is in a lot of cases, communication is key, and we're seeing a lot of places there isn't a lot of communication. And the way you could, your employees can better themselves if they can practice, in a lot of cases, practice safely before they actually get into the conversation. So the key for that is I'm just trying to see how many people think it's important, how many don't, so that I can sort of talk a little bit about that when I show an example of it. Oh, interesting. I thought it'd be a little more very important, but this is cool. So hopefully we'll get some dialogue going on those who don't believe it's important. But let's continue with the presentation. So what I'm going to talk about today is, a lot of people are a little bit nervous about AI. I think it's going to take their jobs. But as learning professionals, you're still incredibly needed because you were really, at the end of the day, the way you write your prompts, the way you lay out the design of the course is you just use, really AI to do the construction of what you're looking for. So before we get into that, one of the things that's really important that, when I talk to learning professionals, a lot of time they say the most important outcome is to enhance the learner experience. And I say that's not true. The most important aspect of a learning professional is to be able to help companies through the training obtain their business outcomes. And what that is, your lagging indicators, your leading indicators, obviously, is if you make great, engaging content, people will go through it and pick up some stuff, and that will lead to them to get to the business outcomes. So whenever we are looking at designing a course, the most important thing we take a look at is what are the business outcomes that we're trying to derive. So I'm going to lay out this case study. And in this case, our company, the ABC company, has just hired a brand new sales manager and really brought in to improve the renewal rates. And the renewal rates presently, we say, what are the renewal rates? It's 72%. And the key is she's going to be responsible for driving this revenue and making sure the percentages go from 82 to 85%. What we're finding out is that the ABC company uses some really great engagement platforms like Salesforce, Zendesk, Gong, and Groove. But the key is she's going to have to use these tools to monitor the sales force so she can have those difficult discussions if someone's not doing well. So the goal is, how do we onboard this sales manager and make sure we can create this compelling course so that she can ensure that she's starting to deliver these results in 16 weeks. So the first thing as a learning professional says, well, I really don't have a clue what Salesforce, Zendesk, Zora, Gone, and Groove are. So the first thing is she could do research, go to Google and go through that. But literally, she can now use AI and ask it one simple question. And let me... So if we go up and we take a look, I went to ChatGPT and I said, just provide me an overview of Zendesk, Zora, Gong, and Groove, as well as their main use cases and core differences. So what's really neat is doing the homework for me. It's talking about what it is, what's the primary use case, and what's the key differentiator. So it gives me, as a learning professional, background information that I'm going to require before I start doing an outline of the course. The next thing that I would say is, okay, let me just go back to my slide. So I have to find out tool intelligence. So what I did here is I found out, okay, these are the tools that the corporation uses. I've got a little bit of understanding, now it gives me a sense of the tools. But the important thing is, how does a sales manager use those skills to evaluate? And how does a sales manager does her job better to make sure she can get to 72% to 85%. So again, I said, okay, let me go back into my generative AI and let me write a prompt that will give me an outline of what a successful sales manager needs to learn to be able to be successful. So what I wrote was, I just hired a new sales manager. She manages a team of 20 inside reps. It's mandatory that all the reps put this information. I talk about, please outline what our daily, weekly, quarterly tasks are going to be. How do I use these tools to make my team more effective, and outline what my typical day is. So now what is happening is, as a learning professional, we're building the onboarding for this particular sales manager. In the olden days, like 2 years ago, it would take interviews. You would have to go through all the lists. You would take weeks to do it. But I'm going to use AI to be able to quickly at least get a framework so I can look at it, compare it against, any policies that we have specifically to the government, to our company, and to be able to make those changes. So when I ran this through, in this case, ChatGPT 4, it started to lay out what does an onboarding program look like? So managing the sales, using segment processes, what are the daily tasks? So now it's talking to me, what's my daily, weekly task? Now it's talking to me, what does the sales manager have to know about the specific applications to manage successfully her sales team? So ChatGPT comes through. It talks about from Groove. It'll talk about for Gong, which is sales coaching. It'll go through Zendesk. So literally what it's doing is it's now creating all of the areas, plus how she should handle different types of clients working with, big renewals versus small renewals. And then from that point of view, she starts understanding how she's going to manage the team. So what this does from us, we can now segment and start to design what the program can look like. So once we have all these activities, to ensure that we have an outline of what would make a great program for the sales manager. Now what we've got to do is say, what would an actual training curriculum look like? And I'll get into that in a second. So we're just going back to what I said. Her goal is to increase it renewal rate from 72%. She's got to be able to first, we understand that she's going to have to understand the tools. So we have to understand the tools before we can lay out an onboarding program. We need to know as professionals what's going to make her successful to be able to grow those from 72%. So what we found out is when we ran this, we got a good overview of what the training focus should be. And that was really generated by us writing those very simple prompts. And if those who are interested, we can package up all these things that I'm showing in Word and send them to you so you can get an idea of what good prompts look like. So now we know what the training focus is going to be. So then we say, okay, so I've run the report. I've had a chance where I can actually find out about the tools. I know what a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly activity for a good sales manager looks like. How do I actually build an outline and a detailed course outline? So let me show you that prompt.
Doug,
Yes.
would you mind going back into presenter mode so that the text is a bit larger?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, like I said, we already had ChatGPT help us, the LLM help us decide and understand what the different tools are. We've had it to give us guidance on what a good onboarding program would look like. We can use that to edit, to fine tune it. Now, once we have all that, how can we make a good course and to make sure it's covered before we start actually building the details of the course? So this is where I use what's called deep research. So as you can see, this prompt is very similar to the same prompt that we use to be able to find out what the day is. But I added, what type of difficult conversations will I have with my sales team? How do I overcome? Then I said, build a course outline on how I can make my sales manager proficient at her job. So what's happened here? Once I run this through deep research, the actual avatar or the voice comes back and says, hey, this is a fantastic and detailed foundation, but in order for me to make it better, let me ask you some questions. So this is the AI engine asking me for clarification. That's why I say this deep research is really, really important for learning professionals to get their hands on this. So it asked me, what's the background of the new sales manager? Do you want this course to be self-led, trainer-led, or blended? What's your timeline? Would you like the course to include assessment tools, quizzes, scenarios, any particular goals? So then, as the learning professional, I said the person is going to be experienced in renewals, but not in the tools outline. Has some management experience, but not a lot of interaction. So I want some scenarios to be able to run that. These are, I happen to be using Cicero, but you can use other things. I said I want self-led followed by live sessions and a workshop to validate her knowledge. It can't be any longer than 4 weeks, and I need results in 16 weeks, and I need to increase the renewal rate from 72% to 85%. So now, after deep research and after I wrote my prompts, it's now going away. It usually takes about anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to start formulating and giving me out a scenario or giving me out actually the framework. So everything's moving along just fine. So the end result is it is now built an onboarding deck outline for me, high level view, where it's now going to talk about the sales manager, what the objective is, the duration, what each week is going to include, what's the focus, what sort of scenarios, what's my live workshop at a high level going to do. It's going to give me, so it's laying all this out. Now, remember, I started building this last week when I knew I was going to deliver it. I created this from start to finish in the span of less than an hour and a half. Now, I fine tune it, but it gives you, think of the power it gives us as professionals to be able to get the foundation. And then I can say, okay, this is nice, but can I go a little more detailed? So what we did is I said, make it more detailed. And then it lays out the focus, the scenario assignments. It's now getting more deep. And then I can eventually, if I decide, I can then take each one of these and say, actually build me out the content for each hour. So you can go from a high level right down to a low level, to a detailed level. And again, it doesn't take away from us. It literally gives us a framework that we as experts can edit. The key is how you write your prompts, what you need to know, and how you can put it together. So going back to my screen, so now the last thing that I need to do is say, okay, how, now that, we've got an overview, we understand all the different tools, we got the day in the life of a successful sales manager, we built an actual outline of what the course is going to be. Now what we've got to be able to do is we want to go a little more deeper. The next level is you can say, help me build the course in slideware, at least to start you. And then we can say, let's start testing out role playing. And so in this case, again, using AI, in this case, Cicero is an AI tool, I can write a scenario. And here's what the scenario is. The scenario is I've got my top producer in the company does not use Salesforce to enter his information. It is absolutely critical for us because I can't do my job without appraising him. So now I have to have this difficult conversation with my top performer to convince him that it's in his interest to actually start picking up Salesforce. So again, I use this as a tool in AI that then creates this scenario that allows me as the sales manager to practice safely. As a learning professional, I can create multiples of these based upon what AI suggested is most important. So let's watch this. Let me I just learned how to have difficult conversations, but I want to have the opportunity this time to be able to practice it safely before I have an actual conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link myself into my role-playing software called Cicero that allows me to be able to practice this safely based upon different personas. So this is Billy Sears. He's one of our top inside sales reps. He is not putting anything into Salesforce, and I have to tell him to start doing it. At the very worst, if he doesn't, I'm going to have to release him, no matter how good he is.
Hey there, it's Billy Shears. I'm ready to dive into this Salesforce compliance discussion and see how we can make it work with my sales approach. Let's get to it.
I'd appreciate a little more politeness, Billy. Although you're the top performer, we must be civil to one another.
All right, Doug, I hear you. Let's keep it professional and focused. I'm all ears for how we can tackle this Salesforce compliance thing together.
Billy, you are a top salesperson, but there's no way I can't improve you if I don't know what kind of information you're putting into the system. We can get you to be better, but I can't do it if I can't see it.
I get where you're coming from, Doug. But honestly, the time it takes to log all that data feels like it's pulling me away from actually closing deals. How do we make sure I'm not losing valuable selling time?
It is going to take a little bit of time, but I think if we can train you on shortcuts, especially logging all your activities, communications through Outlook, and automatically updating Salesforce, it won't be as bad as you think. And more importantly, I'll be able to give you insights to potentially have you even drive more sales.
All right, Doug. If you can show me how to streamline the process and make it less of a time sink, I'm open to giving it a shot. If it means I can close deals faster and more effectively, I'm all in.
That's really great to hear, Billy, because we would hate to see you leave the organization. And I'll get training set up for tomorrow. Then after that, I expect all of the information to be logged into Salesforce.
Sounds like a plan, Doug. I'll be ready for the training and make sure to get everything logged in. Let's see how this can boost my sales game even more.
So now what we're doing is I'm just going through the system. It's automatically listening to what I said. It's transcribing the conversation. It's now evaluating how I performed. And what's really great about this, I get really good feedback. And from that point of view, I can hone my skills before I finally meet him. So as you can see, I did quite well. And it tells me why I did well. I had the importance of logging activities. I handled the objections about time consumption. I framed up a tool for empowerment. I did really, really well. My clarity of communication could be better, and it explains what my strengths were, but I'm not that concise and I could do better. So again, after we did the training, I can hone my skills, and then I can actually use this knowledge to become better when I have my discussions. So in this case, we literally, all in the span of time, we've actually, let's review it. I'm going to say the summary. We actually used AI from a synergetic point of view, where we think of what we know is important, and we let AI do a lot of the generation. Start your video. Okay. Does everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So again, we're practicing safely. So what happened is, in this case, they were able to do a 4-week training plan, energize the gang, and moved it from 72% to 85%. All of a sudden, if that case happened to be, $10 million and you get 13%, that's $1.3 million. Now you can do, going back to the lagging indicators, you can say, I quantifiably delivered training that directly related to adding $1.4 million to the company's revenue line. So the key is we're going at it from what's important for the company and business outcomes. But what we did is we made very engaging leading indicators, very engaging education, and we used AI to help us make it fast and personalized. So if I was to review, and this, although we're talking about tool training, it can be any type of training. So our key is, first, if you're in a position and you're looking at onboarding a new group of people, what is the role? How do I align myself with the company objections? In this case, we're saying, we understand that. Let's take a look at if there's tools or skills. Let's use AI with a lot of our training documents that we might already have in the system. Let's put it into AI. Let's go outside and say, what does a day in the life of this particular employee going to entail? Then we say, let's map out what that person might do. Let's edit it. Then what we can say is, okay, based upon this day in the life of, what are the skills that are required for learning? If it is communication, let's have us create our role plays, and stimulate the most critical communications, and then tie everything like I did to this. I tied everything back to the metrics so that I can go in and sit at the big boy table and say, I am a direct contributor to the organization's bottom line by developing this type of training that is personalized, immersive, and in fact, cost effective. So to us, when we take a look at, when AI came in, there's a lot of fear, but I see it as a tool that all of us can use very, very effectively to really ramp up and start giving even more personalized, because everybody can develop personalized training, but they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. We're just using AI as a resource tool to help us get better. At the end of the day, the prompts that were written by me or written by you. How we're asking those questions was written by us. We just got AI to try to interpret it and be able to create the information. Once we have all that information, then we can edit it. So the key is we end up getting incredibly productive. We can actually directly impact the outcomes of the business, and we can do it cost effectively. So on that note, we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. I'd like to stop and ask if anybody has any questions.
Doug, there's a question here. Can you hear me?
I can.
There's a question here from Brandy. She missed how you got to the person in Cicero to practice the discussion.
Oh, so how I got to, so I just launched the application. I can, maybe I can show you that, how, let me just quickly share. I'm not sharing right now. Let me share and I'll show you. Okay, let me see. So let me log in and show you what we did. So we literally, so this package Cicero allows you to literally create a scenario. Let me show you what the scenario is. I just, in my scenario, I wrote this. I'm talking to Billy Shears, my top selling renewals rep. He delivers the results and does not see the value in entering information. I must convince him why I should start. If all else fails, I must fire him. That is all I wrote. And Cicero has the knowledge to say, it will say, I suggest that, let me get this out of the way. It will suggest what the focus areas, what are the features and benefits, why should people put things in Salesforce? What is the objection am I going to have? What's closing the sale? All of this is created totally by putting in that one paragraph. And Cicero, using AI, generates all this information. Now, as a learning professional, you can edit any one of these. You can select, if you want to take a look at your, you can take a look at your persona. You can decide if you want to go against someone who's much more volatile. You can change it as much as you want. You can take the politeness down. So this system that we happen to use allows a person to make these sales scenarios, customer service scenarios, leadership scenarios in under 10 minutes. And then as a learning professional, we can go and make those changes.
Okay. Another question I see here, Doug, is can I use AI to prep clients for interviews and subsequent employment?
Absolutely. You could do it with Cicero, but you could do it just as well as you can basically, what we would do is we would load up, in this case, I'm just going to use Cicero as a plan. We would load up the job description. We would load up what we think is important for the evaluation. And then we would load up that person's resume. Just drop them in as training documents. And then we would have the avatar ask the person questions, or you could practice and then practice the questions against the person who's got those skills. So you can practice beforehand, or you can make actually the avatar either create the questions or create the questions for you to ask.
I see a question here. I work in the healthcare industry and specifically want to utilize AI for training purposes for our 911 operators and the quality assurance professionals. Is there any other program aside from Cicero you would recommend?
Oh, there's a whole bunch, and it depends on what your goal is. Is your goal to do role play, or is your goal to make sure you create checklists? Because what I would do is, I would, in your case, if you've got access to any one of the LLMs, and you can go into deep research, what I would do is I would take your procedures that you have, create a project in one of the LLMs, explain what you want, what your issue that you're trying to attract. Whether it's going to be, stressful conversations, how do you bring down the stress levels? If you have any sort of either documents that you use for training, if not, you can say there's a lot of good books that you can digitize into PDF and put in there. And then you run deep research and say, this is my goal. And it will then produce a written document that you can use as your guides. It's not always going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it gives you the framework to start building your courses. And that's the key. It's never going to be 100% excellent. It's going to be good enough until you can make the changes.
Okay, and okay, the questions are coming in very fast now. Is this only for enterprise or can it be used as an individual for professional development?
What a great question. It's primarily for, this course was telling you how to build courses. Building the courses, you can do individually just by grabbing any LLM. As far as role playing, it's a corporate tool only right now. Great question though.
Okay, there's another question. Can this be used in case management practice scenarios?
I wish she was there to answer, like what, I'd like to know what type of case management it would be.
This is Jody. Jody, would you mind expanding? Homelessness response system.
Wow, that's a sensitive issue. Yes, you have, what we would do, just let me get back here and show you how we might, so in this case, you're looking at, how you're going to get evaluation. I'll show you what an evaluation might look like. You might show, when you're to be able to judge if you're doing a good job, you might have what's called emotional intelligence, active listening. But what you really might say that's important, my measurement criteria of a good caseworker has to have empathy. So you would add empathy into the evaluation criteria and you would give it a high score. I mean, that's the beauty. You want to make sure that you have the capability to change it up based upon what type of, what you want your employees to represent you. Is it critical that they have active listening and they're empathetic? Because in this case, it's a very tough role that they're being faced in.
Okay, I see a question from Melody Davis. Is it in the pipeline to frame conversations for success knowing a person's, I'm not familiar, DISC or DISC or Clifton strengths profile, where because they are internal or on a team instead of the sliding scale to teach you how to flex to someone else?
Okay, that's a loaded question. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer that properly. I do know that you have journeys, and the journeys mean you get passed from one individual to the next, and you have to prepare to, if in the case of the journey is you have to get a decision, you have to talk to, in one case we have a drug company where you might talk to the oncologist and the nurse practitioner and the procurement, each one has their own desires and needs, and they're going to approach it differently. Can you flex it to go up and down? In regards to, I think what you're saying is the personality types, we use the 5 personality form. You can import other personality roles as you like. But I might have missed that question totally. So Carmen, send that to me so I can research and get it back, because I don't want to give something that's wrong.
Yes, okay. And then I see a question here from Tammy. To confirm your response, enter the procedures in any training document and explain what you want to create. Is this how that works?
Yeah. So when I talked about what we showed today, like what we would do is, you should always create what's called a project. Okay, and in your project, you would then take your training documents or any other documents and put it in there. That doesn't mean it's only going to use those documents, but you can say, these are my priority information that I'm going to use. You set that up before you start writing your prompts. And then literally it will take priority, the information that you have set up in that project, as more important than anything you might find on the internet. So yes, get your ducks in order. It doesn't matter if it's a PDF, it's Excel, if it's PowerPoint. Just get them in order. You don't have to do any sequencing. You don't have to do any other sort of functioning to be able to say, it's got to go a certain way. Just get it in there. Then you write your prompts from that point of view.
Okay, Megan has, more questions pouring in very quickly. Megan has just asked, can your role plays be embedded in Articulate Rise?
We do it all the time. We do it all the time. And interestingly enough, guys, the guys who are using Rise, take a look at the new Captivate that has come out that allows you to do a lot more interactivity than Rise did. So something you might want to look at, because you can do a lot of input forms where you never could do that before. But yes, you can embed this exactly. We're doing it all the time for a lot of our clients.
Okay, Olga has just asked, are there region restrictions? I tried to log in and received a message that it's not available in my country.
There should not be. www.cicero.app. App. Should not be.
Okay, the other thing we can say, Olga, is if you like, we can follow up later and make sure that you gain access. Bonnie has said, it's moving very fast. I'm sorry, trying to keep up. Assessment profiles. There may be ethical considerations looking at training and coaching based on personality types. That's not exactly a question, sorry.
But it's a good point. It is absolutely a good point, and it's not a be all and end all. You've got to look at that, and you've got to test it in these environments. So it's not a question, but it's a point. You've got to test your evaluations with the different localization that you're going to be working with to make sure that it adheres to the right culture, right type of individuals, so that it doesn't create bias. Now, technically, it shouldn't, but you got to always test this thing.
Okay, Tara has asked, how is the data security? Some of our information is secret.
Right. So we are ISO 27001 secure, and what we do is, depending on the level of security, you can either use our LLM or you could use your own LLM that you're using, and that way you have complete control. But it is ISO 27001 in security. So we're really, really proud of that, because we understand the importance of doing that.
Shweta has asked, how do we get more information on integration in Articulate Storyline?
I can tell you right now, it's very easy. If you have an iframe, just create an iframe and drop it in. But they can reach out to me and we can explain it with your situation, but we just create an iframe and drop it in.
All right, and Vicky has asked, what is the cost?
So the cost is based upon the number of role plays, and it's priced on a yearly basis. It's $30,000 a year, and you get 3,000 unique role plays, and you can create up to 100 different types of scenarios. So if you take a look, is my screen showing? You take a look. I've got one for data entry. I've got one for selling drugs. I've got one for getting ready for a purchase, applying an ad pitch, having difficult conversations. Someone's been locked out of their account, unruly. So one of the really nice ones, the first one that we actually created was for a company called Scoot Airlines, which is owned by Singapore Air. And they wanted to be able to do role play for unruly passengers. So they were our very first client, and it was really fun doing it because I think all of us, if I could have you raise your hand, have been on a plane and have been experienced with some unruly passengers, so we could sort of relate to that. Is that it?
Can give a few more seconds here to see if there are any other questions. Does Cicero work with nonprofit savings?
Yes. Yeah, and well, it's really kind of interesting. It's also not, it works with nonprofit, but as well, it's multilingual in 38 languages. What's really cool is you can take your procedures in English, drop it in to your training document, and if a Japanese person decides to talk to it, it'll translate those information in it. So it's got all that information. You don't have to go through a translation bureau to be able to do that. So I think I'm going to be getting the boots shortly. So getting back to the whole program today look, AI is a tool to complement every one of us to, when I got nervous about it, but I looked at this and I'm saying, we can increase productivity tenfold, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the subject matter expertise, the ID mentality, this thing is just going to give you crap. And I hate to say, the thought process has to go into this. But if you do, all of a sudden you can make this personalized training that is without a doubt world class, and you're going to get business results that's going to really draw a lot of attention from the people that are responsible for the bottom line.
I've got two more questions if we have
Okay,
time.
I got time. I think we have 2 minutes.
Go for
Okay.
it.
I'm relatively new to using AI. What are your best practices for writing prompts?
I would say the most important thing is write it as you see it. Then take what you wrote in Word, drop it into a prompt and say, write this so that my LLM can clearly provide the information. So it will write the prompt for the prompt, then take that, then run it through the prompt. I know it sounds confusing, but write it once in your own words, then ask, say, ChatGPT to rewrite it so it becomes more effective for the prompt, then take that and drop it in. That's what I do all the time, and it really gives me good results.
And then Vicky has a question about Cicero. Will it integrate into any LMS system or does it run by itself?
So it's running in all the ones, sum totals, Saba, success factors. So far, anyone that has that can be SCORM, whether it's 2004 or whatever number it is, 2001, it can work with this. Will work with all.
Dayforce specifically?
Pardon me?
Dayforce?
Yes. So it's 12:45. I think I'm being told that it has to be over, but I hope you enjoyed it. I just really fascinated. At first, I was scared of AI. 4 years ago, we got involved in it. But I see I see the value. I see, the whole job stability as well, because if we embrace it, we're going to become critically important, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that are going to be writing and coming up with the scenarios. We are the ones that are going to be eventually making all the onboarding. We're just using the tool as a construction element. That's it.
Lovely. Yes, you were correct. We are out of time, but loved your transparency. Great questions, great engagement. So thank you so much, Doug and Carmen, for this.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes. And no more technical issues from my end, thankfully, hopefully. So thank you everybody for joining this session and bearing with us. We will be taking about a 15-minute break. Up next, we have Nolan joining us from InfoPro Learning for their session, AI-Powered Learning, Practical Tools and Technicals for L&D. So just in a moment, I will end the session and you can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and going to the session tab. We will see you in a few seconds, but stick around. Bye, everybody.